topic be? And we're living in a very fast-pacing industry. So I was like, I don't know. I'll probably figure out the day before. What's hot? What's really going on? But I think we need to talk about automation. There's a lot of buzz going on. We need to automate. Not only in our industry, but in general. It's robots, it's self-driven cars. And we talk about automation like it's the really new next big thing. But for me, it isn't. I think this is what mankind has been doing for more than 10,000 years. We constantly try to automate. We connect automation to IT or something that we can add power to. But we've been doing it forever. We always try to do stuff faster, cheaper, and better. That's why we got the railroad. We got cars. We got the telegraph. We got a lot of stuff that actually have changed the world. I mean, a lot of the stuff, if it hadn't come, we wouldn't be here tonight. DAMA would not exist. So it's automation for me is not something new. It's more that the last 10 years, maybe 20 years. I think there's not a lot of young people here, so we can all remember, so we can even go back to the telephones, like in the mid-80s. I saw today that there's a school district somewhere here in the US, I didn't understand where, that was still using a Commodore 64 to control the AC and heating. They might need an upgrade, but it's okay. So, what have changed is, for me, is globalization. 30 years ago, we started to outsource. That was also automation. That was the same pursuit of trying to get more stuff done cheaper. Everything was about cost. We need to do it cheaper. So we outsourced. And in Europe, we started to outsource to Eastern Europe. Then they kind of got too expensive. So we continued. And at some point, we basically now is bringing everything back. And that's what I can see also in US. Companies start insource stuff that 30 years ago we were sending to China or India or Bangladesh. Of course, Nike and other companies claim that they do it because of humanitarian reason, because there's those bad circumstances that they work under. But I think the cost is too high. The quest of trying to cut cost is come to an end by outsourcing. So now we're talking about automation. And then we shouldn't forget, as we talked about at dinner, at our table, that a company like Apple, they're probably a little more focused on profit than our well-behavior, right? It's all about profit. If we cannot outsource to make us more competitive, then we need to think of something else. Again, bring it back to automation. What is the most important asset today? And I will try my best to see if we can have some interactions in this, so that you don't get bored of me talking with a strange accent, right? What is the most important asset in any company in 2015?
People. They say it's people.
Okay, they claim it's people. Okay, I haven't thought about that. Second most important thing. Data. Everything today is about data. Everything that companies are doing involves data. 30 years ago, I'm not saying your life was easier, my life was easier 30 years ago, I was still in school. But for those of you who went out of school, your life was probably a little easier in the BI, reporting, data warehousing, data industry. It was about building and collecting financial data so we could build a financial statement. Yes, okay, the tools were not as sophisticated as today, so it still requires some skills. But today, we have data in everything. We have a world of rapidly growing startups all over the world that only focus on data, collecting data. Data is, as I see it, going to be one of the new currencies. Not only Bitcoin, which is data, that they named Bitcoin so that we have it as money. It's very big in Eastern Europe and Russia these days. But you have entire business models about collecting data. Yes, we wrap it up in a piece of software like Facebook, like LinkedIn, and claim that we actually help you get some stuff done. We have a lot of discussion in Europe right now. You have this strange company called Uber. Except that we don't understand the valuation and how people can spend that amount of money in trying to build a company. That's a little strange as a European. It's more like, what is the real idea behind? Why would Google invest billions of dollars in a company like Uber? Why have Microsoft invested in that company? What's the key here? And I'm pretty sure it's data. They're building a platform, an application. They don't give a damn, sorry my language. If you want to be moved in a car from A to B and fighting the established taxi industry, no. They're building a platform knowing everything about your behavior. If you use your Uber app, I guarantee that everything is stored somewhere in some Hadoop database. They call it big data. Well, I don't know what I call it. I think we have to redefine privacy with all these data that's floating around. So basically what we have witnessed today is that technology is pushing all of us. It's pushing the speed in which all companies need to be able to change. We need to be able to react faster. We need to be able to stay competitive. And of course, yes, we need people. End of day, people is doing this, at least for the next, X generations, then the computer will probably take over that part as well. There's a lot of books written about that. But as part of this, when data analysis is moving into basically any kind of job, any department in any company, data analysis becomes key. At the same time, we see that we have a growing number of applications. So running a company today is probably, in the old days, we had the SAP ERP system. I'm not saying it was bad. It was painful. And my background way before I started BI was doing ERP in the dynamic space. And that was also painful. But in the old days, you could say it took 3 years to implement SAP. And that was good. That was fast. And we didn't care because it would last at least 10 years until we had to make any change. Yes, we needed IT people to make sure it was running and taking care of the hardware and backup and try to help all the users when they deleted stuff they shouldn't have deleted and how do we get it back into the system. So it was a very different speed at which things happened. Today, Well, Microsoft is releasing every 12 months a new major release of the ERP platform and the CRM platform. And by the way, all the other cloud solutions and on-prem applications like marketing automation tools, supply chain tools that have popped up. I was once doing as a chief architect a major ERP implementation at a pharmaceutical chewing gum company in Europe. And they calculated that they had 138 different IT systems to produce 10 different products. Yes, it was high volume, but still 10 different products. The goal was to get it down to 10. When I left the project, we were at 154. So basically, with all this coming in, that also changed how the data people, as I call all of us, because we are all different kind of data people, but we all work with data to some extent. But also all our colleagues in IT. So they have a massive pressure down on IT from the business. Business wants more. Business is not patient anymore. They were patient in the SAP project. Yeah, it takes forever. Yeah, we know that, and we're not even sure we want this. IT, I remember, that was probably the beginning of the 80s. There was this PC in the corner of the sales department. I put it there to the sales team. And it's like, they had no idea what to use it for. Then I made a small database to them. Okay, now you can collect all your reclamations, all your returns. Why do people return? And we don't care, we just give them some new. Nobody would do that today. Today, we want to know exactly the entire flow. We want to know why. The business is asking why. And if we tell them, I don't know, they go somewhere else. Because they still want to know why. Why is this happening? Why do we have a churn on our customers? Why are they buying? And this brings us basically to the next step. How do we support IT? No, we don't. How do we support the business? How do we make sure that we, as database administrators, as data warehouse architects, as data analysis people, how do we make sure that we can actually react fast enough? Anybody implementing Scrum or any other agile methodologies on how do we do that? What's the benefit? Does it work?
Agile?
Yeah.
Sort of.
Sort
of. Yeah. It's tough, especially to keep up with IT. The speed of IT that moves.
Yeah.
And trying to keep up with their process is the real struggle. And they're adding data and adding relationships before the architecture can keep up with it.
Exactly. And we're not even going out to the real business now. We're still between IT and the data people. Imagine that, according to Gartner and Forrester, that in the future, who's buying IT? Who's buying the software, the applications? Who has the so-called IT budget? We don't. The business does. Everybody agrees that the biggest spender on IT going forward will be the chief marketing officer, followed by the chief commercial officer and the CFO. For me, the CFO is a little dark horse in this because in a lot of companies that haven't matured, the CIO is still under the CFO, so he already part of the game. But okay, he might start to bypass the CIO. It's something that we discuss a lot in Europe. The new role of the CIO. What's his job? how do we get him to move up to be at the same level as all the other C-level? Because it is a little strange that you have 2 levels of C-level in a business, right? I mean, I didn't learn that in school. If I'd done that, I think, to my exam, it's like, you're done. But Agile is working to some extent, I agree. And I think, like outsourcing, Agile has helped us get to the next level. Now the problem, as you rightfully described, it's not enough. It can't bring us the last piece, especially going forward, because now the CMO will go out and buy 2 marketing automation systems, and he wants you don't know these systems, you were not involved in the buying process. He's already set it up, because that took only a week. That's the beauty of this cloud. It's instant on, or at least we believe so when we sign the check, right? It's never instant on. That's also its processes and training. But and the day after that this instant on has happened, it comes down to you. Hey, I need all this information into the warehouse because I need to combine it with these data and I need to do all this. And you're like, okay, can I have a couple of weeks just to understand the system and how can I actually connect into this cloud solution and what is all this? But this is going to be the future. At least as I see it. So we need to do something about it. We need to automate. And a very different example on the value from a business perspective, and this is an example I take from our own company, is travel expenses, corporate credit card expenses, reimbursement. Yeah, I know it's important for you guys, but it's you who need to be reimbursed. Yes. But from an admin point of view, it's a pain. It's Excel, at least in time center, and most of the companies I know of. It was Excel spreadsheets that you filled out, you sent it around through email, and someone should sign off. Alex would send it to me, I would sign it off. And then someone would send it to someone in accounting, and then we go into the bank and try to figure out how do we transfer money to this person. At least in Europe. Here, over here, you would still write checks. That's paper data. I don't get it. I think that also will go away. Apple Pay or something. What we did was actually deciding we don't want this. We want this to go away. Of course, the easy part would be to tell people, don't travel, don't visit your customers, don't go on a sales call, and stop using the corporate credit card. No, that didn't work. So we decided to take on a cloud solution called Expensify. It could be any of these solutions out there. And actually, after 3 months, we have removed, not automated, we have completely removed 90% of the workload involved in handling this. And they continue to develop. Just in those 6 months we've been using the system live, they already moved in with new automation so that if I set in rules that these kind of expenses under this amount will actually be automatically pre-approved and reimbursed directly as a direct deposit from my bank account. No human being involved. And this is a very different example, but this is, as I see it, this is how the mindset is on the business side. And they don't ask IT to implement, I didn't at least, to implement this solution, because from my perspective, I didn't need help from IT. Okay, so if I don't need help from IT because they don't need to run a server or backup or set up users or anything, my CFO could set up all the users and he had to set up all the policies and all that anyway. Why would I communicate to IT at all, which I didn't, that we got a new system? I don't know. What I do know is that to have, from a management perspective, a system like this in place that do all this, including taking my money and paying it out to people, I need to bring data from this system into my BI and my dashboard into my cockpit to make sure that I can monitor, is there anything that looks wrong? So without actually thinking about it, when I made the decision to implement this system, I generated work for my data people. What I didn't think about was, oh, it's a cloud solution, so it's not like I connect to SQL or Oracle. It's like, oh, it's an API. Interesting. That's why I have an R&D team fix it. That's the beauty of being a software company, right? We have people, different kind of people. But this is just one example. I guarantee that this is going to happen, if it's not already happening, in all the companies that you're working in. Small scale, large scale, I don't know. But it's happening. And it's the nature of having the business deciding themselves which IT systems to implement. It's the natural consequence that we start to see systems that we didn't even know existed 5 years ago. Who knew about marketing automation? Yeah, CRM, we all know that. We have that for like 10, 15, 20 years now. But HubSpot and Pardot and systems like that, marketing automation tool, it's amazing. It's really, really good lead gen tool. It's really, really good for the marketing and sales people. But again, now that is not only data. That is also what people refer to as big data. Is there anyone in this room who, in 2 sentences, can explain to me what is big data? Do you actually think we could agree in a reasonable amount of time, just like the 40 people we are in here, what big data is and is not? No?
I'll try.
That's right.
So it's a new set of technology that allow you to store and process volume, variety, and
I agree. I think we all heard that description. For me, that's the description of big data I would expect, yes, from a group of people in here. So, commercial one?
My understanding of big data isn't about the implementation, but it's about what you do with the data. It's about collecting data from disparate sources and creating predictions and analytics. It's the big data is mostly described as what you end up doing with the data, not how you store it or manage it. It's how you bring it all together and what you do with it. That's my understanding of it.
Isn't it interesting? We only heard 2 suggestions. and they were very different.
And they're very different.
Yes. They're very different. I tend to box it in and say, I agree with both of you. That's the easy part, right? No. I have 2 boxes. And I don't know exactly what's in the boxes, but I know that in one box is volume, and the other box is unstructured. For me, that's a very clear separation when we talk about big data, especially if we talk about BI and big data.
well, I agree, but I also disagree. So the disagree part is that if your current system can sustain that, to a lot of people's definition today, it's not considered as big data. If your system doesn't need to grow, let's say in 5 years, then it's not big data. Big data, the beauty of big data is the ability to scale.
Yeah.
anytime you want, using the affordable commodities hardware. That's one key thing about big data. Otherwise, Google would not need to build this.
No, but
Correct.
that was very interesting.
Right.
Google, Facebook, Twitter. I think the real discussion here is how do we separate big data / Hadoop, the technology, the scalability, the technical stuff we have behind. How do we separate the real use case? Why was this invented? A lot of people claim that Hadoop and big data was invented in the BI world. Not where I come from. Not at all. It has some capabilities that some companies and some practitioners have figured out to benefit from and make stuff cheaper than they are already doing it. Because Hadoop, or the NoSQL concept, is invented like companies like Google, like Facebook, to be able to have a platform that can scale the application they are running. The Facebook application, the face recognition we were talking about here, but also the speed in which if I post an update and I can feel it on my phone and that someone replied to it, basically real time, right? That is why Hadoop, so the technical part, was invented. Then it has some very interesting use cases in the data and BI space. Yes. But that's also why I think the most important thing for us, because it's not only big data. Now we get Internet of Things. Sensor technology here and there, and self-driving cars, and that part I'm actually looking forward to. I mean, I have 2 boys playing golf, and one of them is actually very, very good. And he claims he wants to be a pro, so I told him, okay, but that's hard practice. Yes, so I want to go to the golf course 7 days a week. So I have a part-time job as taxi driving when I'm back home. My wife will do it when I'm on the road, and it's my job when I'm home. So this idea of this Uber, Tesla, self-driven car that I could just, with an app, punch in, pick him up at school, drive him home so he can change and drive him to the golf course and bring him back home when he's gone. Very appealing, right? Very appealing. We're not quite there, but we will get there. I mean, the only accidents Google ever had with the self-driven cars is when stupid humans drives into these cars and obey, because again it's data and rules and programs, and it obeys all the traffic rules. And that is painful if you have 500 horsepower and you want to and then you have all these roadblocks driving around. But they will fix it with Internet of Things. They will interconnect the cars and we will be past that, I'm sure. But we also got, and that's why I started out with having 2 boxes, we also have social data. Social data is also becoming a key in any business now. Especially going back to the marketing automation tools that marketing is bringing in. And again, it's cloud solutions, so we completely forget to ask any of us. We hate that, don't we? Come ask us, involve us in we're sitting down here in a room and we know all about your data, but you don't talk to us. It's boring. But they do come bring the workload on. And on IT, on the BI team, on the data warehouse team, on the data analysis team, and ask all sorts of stupid questions. And they read the same marketing bullshit that I read 4 or 5 years ago when Hadoop came out first. I thought it was this metric, you know, this like they had in the old movies. And then, it would just float into my head. All the answers on all questions I ever had. I just need to make sure that the raw data was in here. Right? There was a guy from Microsoft in Switzerland who was so kind to explain to me, no. First you have to define exactly the dimension and measures. What are you looking for in the data set? Okay, that's like defining an OLAP cube for me. Yeah, and then we have to spend 6 months in JavaScript, in Notepad, writing MapReduce. Okay, so it was not a crystal ball at all. Which, for me, is why I think that a lot of C-level people have very, very hard time understand how do I get to the real business value. There's a lot of hype, there's a lot of talk, and I'm sure and I agree that for all of us, from a technical point of view, it is super duper interesting. And we can learn new stuff. Yes, how does it make the business we're working for more competitive and with a higher profit? But because end of day, that's what the business is looking for. They don't care about gadgets. Yeah, at home they do, but at the boardroom, will this make me a more wealthy guy? No? Okay, don't do it.
So would you say that the difference is big data as being curated or uncurated? So we can bring lots of data together, and I think, is it what you're saying is that they're looking for curated data? They're looking for data that can provide meaning.
Exactly. And the problem with the business, based on my experience, and I'm part of a couple of networks, and it's all CEOs, and most of them, work in outside the IT industry, so they don't even know about data. We have systems. I mean, they're completely on a different planet, but they have the questions, and they want answers, and they want them now. Because for them, it's a competitive advantage to be ahead of your competitor on knowing this, so that you can have a better targeting of your potential customer, or you can have a better placement of your stuff in Whole Food, or whatever, Safe Food, or all these supermarkets you have, right? I should say Carrefour, but that's in France. So basically, with all this floating in, we need to separate between big data, Internet of Things, old classic data, social data. We also need to separate between what is relevant from a BI, data warehouse analysis point of view, and what is data that actually is floating from one application, like Twitter, to another application, like HubSpot. Has nothing to do with us. Yes, I can set up in HubSpot a lot of different streams that monitor the entire Twitter universe for tags, for my name, for specific people, my competitors, but it has nothing to do with BI. This is line of business information. It's data. It's apparently big data because social data is unstructured, and because it's unstructured, it is big data. But it has nothing to do with reporting, with BI, with data analysis. But we have pieces of it who will. Like, how many followers do I have? How fast is my follower growing? Because marketing will ask that, because they pay for advertising on Twitter. So they need to understand, do we get, the result? They want to know, and this is hard data, they want to know how many visitors from Twitter came to our website. They want to mix that with how many dollars did we spend on ads on Google. So they have all this, the data is out there, and what are they going to do? They're going to come down to you guys and say, fix. Okay, some of you have been there, right? Important word we have into fix. Because basically we don't understand it, but we need it. So fix. So my take on all this is that if we combine this to the fact that, especially in Europe, but I guess it's the same over here, that with all this data analysis that needs to take place in all these new departments, who's going to do it? I mean,
You're going to have to automate.
you have to automate some of it. In the long run, we probably automate everything, right? We go on vacation.
I would ask about machine learning and deep learning algorithms. We've been doing, Wes and I, some research on that. It just appears to be incredibly fascinating.
Yes.
The machines are learning how to read
Yeah.
and hear and see.
Yes.
And eventually I would see big data being able to be mined by those types of algorithms.
Yes.
You give it a clue, you tell it, I'm looking sort of for this, let it figure out.
Finding
the
pattern. Yeah. Completely agree. But what should it look for? Who should give it the clue?
Right.
And that's the key here. That we still need people. But I also think that we should automate. But I think we should automate the tedious work. At least we should start by automating the tedious work of collecting data, cleansing data, basically building and maintaining our data silos, our data warehouses, our data marts. Because if we do that, we can, and it's possible today, we can free up like 80% of the manual work that's being done, being used every day, doing this. And at the first, I think, when I said this, I think 2 or 3 years ago, people would actually get scared. Oh, are we losing our job? He's taking away my job. And I can promise, no, I'm not. What I envision is that we need to bring all of you out of the data department, out of the IT department, and we need to bring all of you into the business. You need to sit out in the line of business because they need you. They need the skills and the knowledge you have around data, data structures, analyzing data, putting data together in relation, and all that more technical stuff. Because they have all this out there now. Yes, they can buy Tableau and click. And they can buy in on the promise that with that you connect to any data sources, and it's like magic, like big data, right? And the moment you have more than 2 data sources, it's becoming extremely painful, and you go back and implement a data warehouse, and you work on top of that, and now suddenly it works. So we need to move all the data people into the business. Because in Europe, just in Denmark alone, the latest report from last week is that in 2018 there will be a lack of 3,000 qualified data analysts in the Danish companies. I mean, we're a country of 5 million people, so 3,000 is a lot, right? And discussion right now, and I'm apparently someone decided I'm taking part of that discussion, is around, should we outsource to India? Outsource what? Yeah, we can outsource the data analysis to India. No, we can't. Because the CMO will ask a question today, and tomorrow morning he wants an answer. It doesn't work that way. So for me, the only way to fix is to figure out how do we find a better use of all the people with all the right skills that are already working in all the companies or with all the consulting companies, and have them help adding much more value with the knowledge and the time they spend every day. And part of that is automating some of the stuff. It's bringing in algorithm. It's bringing in machine learning. Instead of trying to have people optimizing our daily loads on our data warehouse. Yeah, but that can actually be taken care of by machine learning. We can learn the machine to look for the same things that you would look at with all your log files and make decisions. Is it as good as what each one of you can do manually? No. I guarantee, case by case, that all of you can build a better ETL process. Something that will load 5 seconds faster than the stuff that we automate.
But if it takes you 5 months to do that.
Exactly. And also, does it add value? I have met so many hardcore data warehouse developers in my life that claim that, yeah, but they have pride. They have such a big pride. I got this from 20 seconds to 9 seconds runtime. I said, I don't care. You have an 8-hour window. He spent 2 weeks. And I said, who is going to pay for that? Going forward, no one. Because now we have to put the entire equation together. If it's the CMO or the sales director or someone out in the business who initiated this task, they have no idea, like the IT department understands, that, oh, it takes time and we need a hard drive, we need a server, and we need all this code and integration done. It's like they have no idea. But they are very good at marketing and they're very good at moving goods. And that's what they get paid for. They need you.
And they're asleep when those 9 seconds, 11 seconds or so don't happen.
Yes. They wouldn't even notice. But they will notice the 5 months. Development time. Someone will also notice that it's hard if the guy with the money doesn't understand anything about the different technical requirements and doesn't understand why we need people full-time to optimize and monitor on this reporting platform. When he have these cloud, in his world everything is cloud. He puts the button, he put in his credit card, and he got it for all 200 employees in his department. And there's no people taking care of anything. Yes, we all know they are, but at the vendor side. So he doesn't get exposed to it, right? So, with all this, who's going to be the winner from a company perspective? Which company? Because every company that have a decent market size or operate in a market of a decent size will have competition. The moment people see there's an opportunity over here to make money, someone will pop up a company that will do that or try to adjust and sneak in. My take is that the company that will be very, very good at combining the internal data, the classical data that we've been using for 30 years, and what we could call now just the external data, so we don't have to discuss big data, social data, IoT, all that. But all the new data that comes in, the company who can combine that and gain some very informative intelligence from all this, from my perspective, is going to be the winner. And there's not a lot of companies out there that the standard sales and marketing people, even the controller in the company, can't do what you can do. So we actually need to automate the data part as much as we can to be able to support the business in an ever faster speed. And of course we can fight it, yes, and we are to some extent. I know some is fighting it more than others, of course. That's the nature of human being. But I'm pretty convinced it is going to happen. And that brings me, so what's timing? I'm way over time, right?
No, you're good. You're good.
Way over time. Just two small examples of what real companies have gained from the concept of data warehouse automation. The first example is a German SAP client called Seekopp. Very, very aggressive on mergers acquisitions. They try to buy companies as fast as they can. That's their growth strategy. They're making building appliances and stuff like that. And of course it's German, so we run SAP software out of Pakistan. And after 6 months trying to get the finance data into what they call business warehouse, which is an SAP product, right? They failed. They were not finished bringing one company from SAP R3 through the SAP gateway to SAP business warehouse. And with the strategy in mind that, well, first of all, we're going to buy companies at a very high speed. And the CEO said, I will not in any way accept that they, from a financial reporting perspective, are not, every new company is up and running in our corporate group accounts, in the reporting system, in less than 30 days after acquisition. That guy had no clue about IT. Or SAP. Or SAP, for that matter. And he didn't care. This is what I need. This is what I need to go to and bring to the investors. This is how the machine needs to run so we get the funding to build out and buy all these companies. So he could relatively easy see that 6 months, and we haven't even got one company in. Something is wrong here with the execution of the strategy.
Or the technology.
Exactly. He turned to us and said, I have this issue. How fast can you do that? And we're like, a couple of days. Yeah, we take this component, and then you buy this from Theobald Software in Stuttgart, which is the same place Microsoft buys the NetWeaver component. So he's the key guy on getting into SAP. And then we fix it. We spent 73 consulting hours from scratch, building out a warehouse, including this report on Microsoft SQL Server. Running every hour. And we spent probably a week, a quarter, supporting them because the controllers are actually, because of the automation platform, bringing in the new companies, just hooking into the new companies and mapping it into their structure, and we're done. So they can do it themselves. Sometimes, they have some strange bad data, because data quality still needs people again to help fix, especially on the finance side. It's a little painful that we forgot the taxes or something. It doesn't work that way. And that was basically because they took the approach of data warehouse automation. That was because that the goal, the business goal, was bigger and more important than how do we, from a technical point of view. And for me it was a bit, and that's why I mentioned it, because bringing Microsoft SQL Server to a German SAP client normally is what people would say, Heine, that will take you a lifetime. But it is changing, because the business wants results, and we basically need to bring in whatever it takes. Before I finish, another small example is a client of us who is doing collaboration in robots. So it's very small industrial robot arms that you can move around. The first in the world that you're not supposed to fence in. So it will work side by side on a production line. It's actually building iPhones for, that's one example. Very, very fast growing company, doubling every year. And suddenly they were in a situation that Teradyne in Boston wanted to buy the little Danish company. Which normally would be a very painful process, because these people, they bring in lawyers and finance people, and they ask tons of questions. And I think a lot of you probably in your lifetime been part of some kind of mergers, acquisitions, and working weekends, long nights, because, geez, we need to have these data. They are asking questions we need to be able to answer. And we all know that if you can't answer, it can really, really cut down the price that they are willing to pay for the company. So there's a lot of stake. We're talking about a company that was doing $38 million in revenue. Teradyne wrote them a check of $350 million cash. The CFO today is not giving us all the credit, unfortunately. I went to the sales team and some other people. But he is going public, and have gone public, and said, if it wasn't for the data warehouse automation concept, that he could very, very fast combine and change, so he could bring them information that gave them confidence that these guys have complete control, they know everything. And freed his time to answer and find all the documents and all the stuff that was not related to data. So he could focus, on adding value to the sales process. And we had 2 occasions where he went on stage in Europe, one in Sweden and one in Copenhagen, and claimed that it would have cost us $10 to $20 million if we didn't have the BI solution the way we had it. So it's big money if we are able to answer the questions and supply the information fast enough. And I think we will end with a little, and maybe this is only funny in Europe. But just, another way of saying that the solution is not to add more people, because we don't have them, right? So if one woman can have 1 baby in 9 months, can 9 women have 1 baby in 1 month? No? So there are stuff. We cannot just add more people. So I will leave it to that. Hope it's been partly interesting. And these questions?
We have time for questions, so
Yeah.
absolutely.
Comments?
Q&A.
How much of your success story would you say is due to in-memory technology?
0. Again, from my perspective, in-memory is just technology. If in-memory column store indexes, if solid-state disk drives, whatever technology from the technical point that will best fit to give me the solution I'm looking for, then I think that's the question. From the business perspective, I think all this, also if you follow like ClickView, for instance, that started the in-memory discussion, like they're from Sweden, they started in '93. They had some issues the first year because in '93 in-memory was not that big as it is today, right? For me, it's always been a strange discussion, because it's something that IT or the data people should just figure out. From a business perspective, if it's an OLAP cube, if it's a Click app, if it's Tableau, in memory, in the cloud, on a drive, I don't see the difference. I don't see the value from a business perspective. In memory, yes, is important, because some of the stuff that I will ask you to do can probably only be done if you do it in memory. Yes? But then you will do it in memory. Make sense?
I have some experience that for building a data warehouse, coding-wise, it doesn't take that much time. But then what takes much of time is to build conform dimension, like building the data architecture to have conversation with various departments. So how would that come into the picture with data warehouse automation? I mean, like, how would you shorten that time building confirm dimension or have conversation of data architecture?
Well, it's of course hard to bring in software or technology that will shorten your conversation with the business, right? That's hard. I think that the difference here is that data warehouse automation today is so much more than ETL. So yes, ETL of course is part of any data warehouse solution. We all know that we need to move data from A to B. But data warehouse automation is the total life cycle on your solution. And we can always argue where do you spend the time. If you can combine it into one toolset, into what I call a platform, and you work based on metadata, even talking to the business will go faster if you apply some Scrum use case concepts. And you don't have to think about how do I implement this. You basically only have to think about the metadata layer. So what is actually the business is asking for. And the whole implementation of your data model. And all the things that you normally would have to consider is basically automated. With a backdoor, we always need a backdoor. We're data people, right? We always need a backdoor so that we can look at what we have done or what the computer has done, the machine-generated code, and change it or modify it if we can see that it has a purpose. That's important. I completely agree. But what I can see is that you might change between 5 and 10% of the code that you will touch with your hands. The rest is, as I said earlier, probably not as good as we can each individually do if we have 5 months to do it. But it is good enough, and that's the key with the pressure and the speed, is that we need to start thinking about when is it good enough, and think more about that how easy is it to change, how easy is it to modify, because the life cycle is shorter also on the data warehouse.
I don't have a clear picture of what exactly that the 72 hours can buy that you promise and you deliver. What was the delivery? Like what did you automate in that 72 hours?
Yeah, but you could say that we automated all the other hours, to be honest, right? So spending 72 hours, we started from scratch, building the ETL process, building the data model, building all the dimensions, facts, connecting into SAP. So everything like you were starting from scratch on any platform, building out a data warehouse for finance, a financial data warehouse, including setting it up so it will automatically run and put in the rules on data quality, etc. Everything's done in 72 hours. Only for finance, yes. It's just
you have all the rules preset. You understand the rules and all that. Because without that, you cannot do that in 72 hours.
I don't know. It's the rules in finance is not that
It has to be
difficult.
very basic rules.
I think you will be surprised, to be honest, what can be done with automation tools these days. How advanced that you can actually, and actually some of it is going back to machine learning. It's about combining knowledge, as I see it, between an enormous amount of ETL developers, data architects. What do they actually do? And when you talk to all these people, you can find patterns in how they and they have do it. And in R&D, you can actually figure out how to get the machine to do these pieces, right? Yeah. So it's always translating the business to the solution is always going to be the difficult part. And that is also why I think that we need the data people into the business, out of IT where they typically reside, and into the business so that they are much closer to the business and have a daily feeling of what's going on up here. much better understanding and part of that team instead of, oh, I don't want to go down there. And they don't understand me.
They don't
right?
like me.
Yeah, they don't like me, and they claim they have all this work, and I can come back in 6 months, and maybe they have time.
Yeah, I'm curious with the data warehouse automation that you're doing, have you encountered during these different acquisitions challenges when you're talking about having constraints about the movement of data between countries?
From a legal perspective or from a technical perspective?
From a legal perspective,
You know what?
taxation perspective.
You know what the beauty is a software window? I leave that to the customer. Yes, my customers have, yes. In Denmark, for instance, you need to have it on Danish soil. Your bookkeeping, your ERP system
Right.
needs to be on Danish soil. And even Microsoft get punished every year by the Danish government because the Microsoft Denmark does not have that.
So how do you address it in those situations then? Do you end up creating multiple data warehouse instances to be able to support that? Or I mean, if you're trying to have an automated approach around data warehousing and you're dealing with those type of constraints,
Yeah.
and your customer wants this common view of the data, how do you address that?
I think we need to have one thing here. The first thing is, when we automate, it's not a black box. So when I talk about data warehouse automation, it's not like a black box and we don't know what's going on. You are in complete control. You build your data model. You decide which data sources to connect to, what data you want from that data source. I just do all the tedious work for you. Building the ETL code and the data model and taking care of that and changing all this data type from Oracle to this on SQL, etc. I think from a BI and reporting perspective, I think in real world you have very few legal implications on our end. And the reason is that I'm not moving the ERP, the financial bookkeeping system, from where it is. And that's actually where I see that companies can use the data warehouse concept to actually overcome that I need to have this in Denmark, I need to have this in Germany, it needs to be here in US. Because it's not against the law to move the data around for reporting. An American company can send the financial data all over the planet if they want to, as long as the original copy is here. That's the key.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. Right now we do have Informatica, some domain ETL tool in the market. I'm wondering for your automation of data warehouse, is the kind of the partnering with the Informatica or just want to replace the existing ETL tool?
I think to some extent we will compete with Informatica. And the reason is that, as you say, Informatica is an ETL tool, right? Like SIS and like with Microsoft's
SSIS.
yes, SSIS, right? Is also or can be used. They can be